Hey guys, what is going on? I am fired up. I am inspired. I just witnessed one of the great Super Rugby performances. Let's not bury the lead. Moana Pacifica did it. They're still very much in the hunt. They beat the Blues in a great game, but lots of incredible results this weekend. Almost a boil over in the very first game. And then in the Aussie Derby, a result that has actually reshaped the table. Yes, I'm going to finish this video showing you the standings. And if you haven't been paying a lot of attention to Super Rugby this year, you might be very shocked by the team that's number one as we head towards the playoffs. But let's break down each game in this really fantastic weekend overall. Oh my God! The Highlanders almost beat the Hurricanes in Wellington. Now, going into this game, previewing it, I said that I was a little bit nervous for the Hurricanes. This wasn't a case of the Highlanders having their backs against the wall. When I think backs against the wall, I think do or die, we got to win to stay in the hunt. These guys are pretty much out of the hunt. I mean, let's be honest. They really haven't been in a serious contender role for weeks and weeks. They blew their chance, right? Well, that's almost more scary. This was a case of having nothing left to lose. So let's just gamble with the house money. What's the worst that can happen? Everyone expects us to lose. Let's just throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at the opposition. And if we get a win, we'll be heroes. If we lose, no one really cares. That's what happened here. The Highlanders looked much less inhibited, typified by that man, Jacob Radamai Tavuki-Neepkins. I've heard the drums banging a little bit for him because Mark Talia, who plays for the Blues currently, great All Black, he's going overseas to Japan. That's going to leave a vacancy in the back three for the All Blacks. Who's going to come in there? Is Ruben Love going to be in the mix in the back three? Are we going to go with tried and tested guys like Sevu Reece, who maybe haven't set the world on fire as All Blacks, but are great Super Rugby players? We know Caleb Clark's got to be in there, but it just feels like there might be a player or two that could come into the All Blacks reckoning in the back three. JRK is one of them. He was lighting it up every time he got his hands on the ball. Radamai Tavuki-Neepkins, great counter-attacker, electric, elusive, a little bit like a Mark Talia. I could also see Leroy Carter from the Chiefs getting a call-up, but we'll talk about the Chiefs next time they play. They were having a bye this weekend. But ultimately, guys, it wasn't just the back three that was the point of difference. It was really the midfield. I mean, so much has been made about the return of Billy Proctor to the Hurricanes. It's made a huge difference. Tavatava Nawai and Talia in midfield were extraordinary. Tavatava Nawai is playing his way into All Blacks contention. I feel like I say that every other week. These boys at 12 and 13 were just smashing anything that came at them and repeatedly getting over the gain line. So it looked like a real banana peel game here for the Hurricanes. It looked like they might drop it. They were good enough to steal it at the death. It was that man, Cam Roigard, who scampered over. I think it was the 82nd minute. I mean, this really... this was going deep into injury time. Prior to the Roigard try, Brett Cameron came off the bench. He's back from his ACL injury. Okay. Now, what has happened in recent weeks? Ruben Love moved to 10, replacing Hohapper, whose form wasn't great, wasn't consistent enough. Ruben Love has lit a fire in this team. Yes, Billy Proctor being back at 13 sure has helped a lot, but I just felt Ruben Love was the magical kind of alchemy that was needed to get the best out of the outsides. But Brett Cameron came on and he looked terrific. Much more traditional 5'8". Stark difference between the two. Ruben Love's instinct is kind of always to run. He goes off his gut feel. Cameron is more measured. Okay, he is just a more traditional first five. So am I going to walk back what I said about keeping Ruben Love at 10? I'm not. I think it's great to have this headache. And I believe that if the Canes are going to go deep into the playoffs, they're going to need both of them. It's that dual playmaker setup that can just work wonders. You know, we've seen it work for the All Blacks, right? Richie Moanga, Beauden Barrett and Damian McKenzie. many permutations, combinations, but when you have two number 10s out there, one's at 15, one's at 10, maybe they interchange, now you're a lot more dangerous on attack. So this was a huge deal to have Cameron back immediately in good form. Hurricanes are looking good. I mean, a pretty dodgy performance, to be honest. They escaped by the skin of their teeth thanks to Roygaard, Cameron, and Ruben Love. But a win's a win. Still in the playoff mix. Speaking of being in the playoff mix, my God, the Crusaders absolutely bounced back and smacked the Waratahs, even with a B team, which, let's be honest, it kind of was. You know, when you have Johnny McNichol playing at 15 and not Will Jordan, who's injured, yeah, that's a downgrade. That's a downgrade at the back. And also, Fletcher Newell was out. Scott Barrett was out. A lot of frontliners missing. Cody Taylor wasn't playing. But the backup brigade were like, nah, we got this. Look at that score, 33-48. Could have been more. In the build-up to this game, I heard this great term thrown around, Coogee syndrome, or Coogee disease. If you're not familiar with the geography of Sydney, Australia, where I lived for 20 years, where my family still lives, Coogee is one of those very nice eastern suburbs where there's a lovely golden sand beach just down the road. And so Coogee syndrome or Coogee disease is what we call it when a visiting team comes into Sydney and they're like, damn, the weather's good in Sydney. This is nicer than drizzly old Christchurch. Wow. Going to hit the beach. Going to go to Westfield Shopping Centre in Bondi Junction. Oh, that's right. There's a game on the weekend. Totally forgot about that. Players can get into vacay mode. You know, sometimes it's better to be in the pissing rain in Christchurch, focused on the game, instead of living the high life in Sydney. Well, there was no Coogee syndrome this week. The Crusaders came out with serious intent. They were chastened by that loss to the Chiefs, that 1v2 clash. They were humiliated in the second half. And they made it right this week. You know, full credit to them. They inflicted a fourth straight defeat on the Waratahs, who really were their own worst enemy, and I got to put that down to week D. Defense shows you how the team's tracking mentally and emotionally. Stark contrast here. Sure, the Crusaders did leak a few points, 33 leaked points. That's not going to cut it as you get into the playoffs. But generally, there was a bit more sting on defense from the men from Canterbury. The Tahs were doing some turnstile tackling here, guys. I mean, the coach gave them a spray at halftime. Not the right attitude at all. And then you had a guy like Rivers Reihana playing at 10 in place of Taha Kemera, who's injured, who was just dancing across the line, carving the Tahs wide open. He looked sensational in this game. He was busting the line constantly, running into acres of space. It looked like sevens at times. So a guy like Reihana, who is a dangerous attacker, was just given way too much room, and he did a good job setting up his outsides. One of them was Sevu Reece, who now equals the all-time try-scoring record. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, guys, I believe he's now equal with TJ Perenara. It took a while. Sevu Reece has had a little bit of a try-scoring drought in recent weeks. I want to say it's 65 tries. I mean, that's deserved. Look, Sevu Reece is a hell of a Super Rugby player, even if he's not the greatest all-black winger, you know, to ever pull on an 11 or 14 jersey. He's a hell of a Super Rugby player, so it's a well-deserved accomplishment for him. And I'm sure he'll push on and have the outright record soon. So, look, where does that leave the teams? It leaves the Tahs nowhere. They're done. They're cooked. I think mathematically they can't even qualify. What a fall from grace. They started this season white hot. They absolutely fell apart. And, yeah, they just didn't have the staying power. Crusaders are going to be there in the top 6 for sure. It's just going to come down to whether they're playing games in Christchurch or not, and that could be pretty important. But good stuff from the Crusaders, a good bounce back here. Speaking of bouncing back, the Drua absolutely ripped the Force to shreds. Yep, the Force scored first over there in Lautoka afternoon game. After that, 38 unanswered points, an absolute onslaught. I put this down to two things, attitude and personnel. Now, when the Blues thumped the Drua last week, that didn't do them any favors. It did them a bit of a favor this week because they were fired up. After that tickle up from the Blues, Beauden Barrett leading the brigade, absolutely routing them at home, they had some pride to restore. So it did them a favor for this week because mentally you could see they were on the edge of the edge, and this result reflects it. I mean, that's one of the biggest scores I've ever seen the Drua put on anybody. So it's attitude. Force had no attitude. They also were lacking in personnel. Probably a mistake to have Ben Donaldson on the bench. They were managing his minutes. Well, at this point, you're managing your minutes out of the playoffs. You probably needed all hands on deck. Unfortunately, Carlo Tizzano, their brilliant number 7, he seems to be having a pectoral issue. So that's why he wasn't out there. They sure needed him imposing himself at the breakdown. Didn't happen. And so they won't use it as an excuse, but I will. The Force have had to travel a lot. They're so isolated. They're over there in Western Australia, right? They're far from everyone. This was just one away game too many in the sweltering afternoon heat of Fiji. They were cooked, guys. They were absolutely cooked. Not there mentally, not there emotionally. And I feel for them. I think they do have one of the toughest schedules when you think about their geographic isolation. Drua not really in the playoff hunt, but still a nice one for them. Shows they are a good team. And good for them to get some headlines because Moana Pacifica has been stealing all the headlines this season. And they did it again. Probably the most important win of the season. It was kind of do or die. Blues, you felt they might still scrape in, but it was a little bit like if Moana Pacifica doesn't win this game, the fairy tale's over. That was the gut feeling. They needed this one, and they got it. Now, they lost the original showdown between these two teams, which was at Eden Park. Looked like it was going the same direction in the first half here. Ricky Riccatelli, the hooker, was just dynamite low, bustling. They were keeping the ball under a blanket, keeping it in the tight 5, pick and go, rolling maul, and it just felt like the Blues might play more traditional rugby, put the squeeze on at the set piece, and just kind of kill the game off, which is a little bit boring, to be honest with you. But so much magic from Moana Pacifica. Magic is really the word I'm left with looking at the second half surge they had here. Taimoi Folau, the winger, he scored a hat trick. Miracle Faialangi and that man in the picture, Ardie Savea, were absolutely inspirational. Ardie Savea's performance, one of the best individual leadership performances you are ever going to see in Super Rugby. We are blessed to have this guy in New Zealand. I'm kind of speechless. This was just sheer willpower, sheer passion. Moana Pacifica out-passioned the Blues. Maybe the Blues felt we could still get in there, even if we dropped this game. Not consciously, but maybe unconsciously they felt that. I felt like Moana Pacifica felt, this is it, bro. This is the final. That was the intensity and emotion that I kind of sensed from them. But there was some clinical stuff out there, clinical kicking. Pellegrini, I talked about his kicking game in the build-up to this. Magic. Crossfield kick leading to a try. Real killer blow. That foot of his is lethal. They need him fit in the playoffs. It was fun to see. I believe Julian Savea set up a try too, so the Savea brothers were out there. But let's finish with, giving Ardie his flowers one more time. He got the final turnover to kill off this game and seal the result. I'm inspired by that. That was a hell of a performance from the whole team, but Ardie in particular. Look at this. Does that just sum it up? That was right at full time. There's the emotion. You can feel it. The crowd doubled. Often they'll get about 6,000 people there in North Auckland. Well, they had, I believe, 12,000. People knew this was a big game. And so we were treated on Instagram to this site, the post-match celebratory song. I love that Moana Pacifica is symbolized by this trash. Because it is. So if you haven't seen it, they do these great celebrations in the change room when they get the win. They sing along. They thump on the rubbish bin, the trash can, whatever you want to call it. And I love it because that's what people thought the season was going to be for them. Trash. People thought, they're going to finish 11th, maybe 10th. What the hell was Ardie Savea thinking? What a fool. Why would you not want to play for the Hurricanes? Why would you go and play for Moana Pacifica, the probable wooden spooners? Nah, man, their season's going to be trash. Well, the only trash that I see now is that trash can that they're thumping because they keep winning. And they can keep doing it. They can go into the playoffs and push for a grand final. It's highly unlikely. It's a fairy tale story, but it's the best story in Super Rugby this year. And I, for one, as a fan, love it. So I'm hoping they get another win in coming weeks. They're still in no way guaranteed. We'll look at the standings in a second, but they're in no way guaranteed to finish in the top 6. But they're still alive after this game. Before we get to the standings, tight one here. Brumbies v Reds in Canberra. Brumbies got the win. Too much Wallaby firepower. Guys like Tom Wright carving it up at the back. Just a little bit more clinical rugby. And look, it's a running joke on this channel. Every week I go through the teams and I'm always saying, is this the Brumbies team from last week? Have I got the wrong graphic? They're just so consistent. I think they have the most consistent selection of any squad. Well, that's bearing some fruit now. That's paying off for them. Alan Lautoka did get injured, so that's troubling. Wallabies need him in the mix. But great win for the Brumbies here. Actually, the most exciting part of this game, which was honestly a pretty modest spectacle, the most exciting period was after full time. It was the 80th minute, and the Reds were hot on attack trying to get a bonus point. And that was actually like the most alive the game ever was. It wasn't a great game. By the way, the Reds didn't get that bonus point they were chasing. Look at that, guys. Brumbies are number 1. I told you might be surprised. But they've been consistent. Chiefs can probably wrangle that back. But some familiar names up there. Chiefs and Crusaders. Hurricanes, Reds. But there it is at number 6. Moana Pacifica. Awesome stuff. Now, you'll notice here, too, that both the Blues and Moana Pacifica are on 28 points. So really, there's nothing in it. And maybe the Blues have an easier run home. Let's worry about that next week. For now, I want to savor this. Moana Pacifica, top 6, Ardie Savea. He's the man. Guys, if you want to get some very cool merch, if you want to support the Wallabies, support the Lions, support the All Blacks, check out the link below. I'm actually a Fanatics partner, and you can get a discount if you use my link. So hit it up, take a look, get some cool merch. I'll be back for another one real soon. Until then, guys, you take care of yourselves. Have a great week. I'll catch you real soon. Take it easy. Bye for now.